I'm going to take some of these things and I'm going to deal with this. So the probate court shows up. This house needs to go to someone. Arkansas law tells probate court where to put that house. They didn't do anything with that house. They didn't decide, they didn't make a will, they didn't do any other documents, they just owned their home and that's all. And they thought, well, we're young, we're happy-go-lucky, we're just going to Haiti. Let's say, just make a joke and say it's Haiti, not Malawi. Okay? Now, the probate court is going to do its own thing according to Arkansas law. And I'm going to have this right here. This is going to be the state of Arkansas. The state of Arkansas. And it's going to work for the elder law stuff too. So the state of Arkansas shows up and whispers in the probate court's ear, this is what you do. And then the probate court will say, okay, I'm going to give this house to this particular person because they're the right person who's supposed to receive it. And lo and behold, it's Aunt Judith who's going to get the house. Oh. And nobody likes Aunt Judith. No. Don't be deceived by her pleasant appearance. This is Aunt Judith. We don't want her to get the house. No. Nonetheless, this is the property in this couple's estate. It's going to go where the law says it goes because the probate court makes that happen. Okay? So Aunt Judith gets the house. And she lives in there happily and somehow fits on this toilet. The proportions don't matter. Imagine it and it works. Okay? That's scenario one. They didn't do anything. They didn't protect their home or anything like that. They went to probate court. Their estate had to pay a bunch of money. They had to pay a lawyer. That's this guy. To run that probate, make it work. He gets a little bit of money from their estate that nobody else that they might have wanted to have would get. He gets that. And then the house goes to Aunt Judith, okay, the way they didn't want. All right? Now, I'm trying to tell you these things in a way that's kind of funny, but the numbers are pretty big. So if we lose the house to probate, you're looking at 3 to 5% of the value of that home gone, straight off the top. Just goes to the court fee and the attorney's fees. Why pay a lawyer? Pay your children instead. Okay? So, how could have prevented it? How could they have prevented this? Well, they could have done something else called a beneficiary deed. So let's have the same scenario. This couple, they're still young, they don't have any kids yet, but they still have their house. Okay? And they're going to still go, guys, you know how the story's going to end. They're still going to kick it at some point. They're going on their trip, and then the same turn, and they weren't paying attention. You'd think they would have learned from last time. But they did do something differently. Before they went on their trip, they took their home and they made something called a beneficiary deed. And they paid a lawyer a couple $100 to do a beneficiary deed. That beneficiary deed is now draped over their home like a little protection. And a beneficiary deed says, when I die, if something happens to me, it's going to go here. So they go on the trip, looking at my phone, texting while driving, and here we go. They're gone. Now, does probate show up? Well, if all they had was this, literally all they had was this, no, there's no probate for that house. So here comes probate. Oh, I don't like that. There's a force field here. I can't get past this. Rawr. Probate goes away. The house is protected. Okay? But what about their bank accounts? Let's say they had some money. And they didn't set any beneficiaries on their money. Well, probate goes after their money now and can get that. Okay? Do you see how this works? Probate's going after your stuff, and it's going to just find whatever it can. That's the way this works. It's not like there's some monster that's going around like actual probate. But that's what the court does. It's trying to find things and then make sure they go the right way. Okay. The scenario is going to get a little bit better each time. So now, Jack and Jill, they have some children. Oh, by the way, poor Aunt Judith, she can't live here now because it's going somewhere else, not Aunt Judith. Remembering that we don't like Aunt Judith, right? Okay. All right, let's see. In this situation, we have the couple, and they go off the turn, but now they have a will. The will. The will's job is to speak to the probate court and tell it their wishes, not just what the law says. So remember, the state over here, if you don't have a will, the state will tell the court what to do. Do this, give it to these people, and then it will do that. Well, the state's not involved if we have a will that directs it. It still has to go to probate court, but at least it has directions now that are more like what you want. Does that make sense? Okay, so a will not get you out of probate court if you don't do anything else, if that's all you have. But it at least will tell the court what to do. So it's sort of a benefit. Okay, so give it to Uncle Bill, not Aunt Judith. Okay? So there we have it. Whatever money was in the accounts, we already have the beneficiary deed. That house is protected in this scenario, so they don't go to probate for that, but they didn't put things on their accounts, so it does go to probate, but the accounts go to the right people because there's a will that says what to do with their estate. That's not great. You still have to spend some money in court, but it's better than not having a will at all, because at least it doesn't go to Aunt Judith, who we don't like.
Right.
Okay, now let's do something even better. Now they've got their family, and they've got kiddos. There's a child right here, and there's a child. Where's the other child? There's a baby. Here's the baby. We're just gonna have these two, okay? Now, I know these are little children, but we're gonna kind of imagine that time has gone by. So fast forward 20, 30, 40 years. This couple now, they've been living, they've been enjoying themselves, they have their home, they got a beneficiary deed on their home, 22 a person, one of their kids. So now when they go on their trip and they pass away, and by the way, they also set beneficiaries on all their accounts to pay to both their children. And now it's not a baby anymore. This is like, you know, a 14, 15, 16, keep going, 19, 20-year-old, and this is about a 30-year-old. Okay, so they're adult children. The couple's now older, enjoying their life, they're driving around, but by now they're not texting anymore. They're actually communicating with each other through the chips in their brains, and they were doing that sort of communication, and then they missed their turn, okay, on their hover car. Somehow it still worked out that they all died, and now it's gonna go to the children. I'm not saying it worked out positively, it still happened. That's the way things worked out, so I say it that way. So they are gone, they have a beneficiary. This child, when they go, he's just gonna get that house because there's a beneficiary deed. Probate can't go after it because there's the force field, it's right there, okay? So that house is taken care of. All their accounts are set to go to their children who survived them. So the children now own all their money, and it's done, so nothing had to go to probate at all. That's great. Even if they didn't even have a will that would have told the court what to do, well, in that case, they didn't need one because all they had was a house. The beneficiary deed worked out. The people who were gonna get it lived. It all went to them, and their accounts were all set up with beneficiaries who lived. So it all worked out fine.
Yay.
Everybody was happy. So in that instance, you don't even need a will. Does that make sense? Okay. I would still recommend a family like that have a will because you don't know if these kiddos are gonna live. They might not. Something might happen to them before you. So just be prepared for that. Okay. Even better, the big player for an estate plan is a revocable living trust. That's the typical trust that I'm recommending to clients. The average client who comes in, they don't have tons of money. They might. I just spoke to someone a couple of days ago who had close to $10 million estate. That's one of the higher estates I've seen in my practice. Most of the time I'm working with folks who are working on their lives and they just want to make sure they protect it so their family will get what they've tried to save. That just makes sense to me. So that's the situation we're in here. Jack and Jill, they're older now. They've got 1, 2, 3 children, one of whom is even disabled, and this actually matters. So in this situation, we're gonna do sort of the ideal plan for this couple. They have 3 children, one has a disability, they have a home, and I'm gonna say they come in to me and they just have nothing going at all. We have no paperwork, nothing. And they have some bank accounts too. Some of them are complicated, whatever. I would say to them, you have a home. You should put a beneficiary deed on that home. And they say, okay, well, should we give it to some people? I could say, yes, you could, but people could die. So I think what you might do instead, given what you have, a home, several different accounts, and some young children, you probably should think about doing a trust. If you have a trust will protect all these assets. They all just sort of are governed and shielded by that thing. So you can tell the home to be beneficiary deeded to the trust, and then it will just go to your trust instead of the kids. So if something should happen to the kids, that's okay. There's still a place for that house to go. Okay? So when it comes time for you to die, and maybe you're worried about probate court, a trust avoids probate. So the trust shows up here. The probate court comes along. You guys have a bad turn in your hover car. You run into that billboard. Okay? And the probate court shows up. Not really, it doesn't work quite like this, but probate comes along. Oh my gosh, I can't fight you. You're much too large for me. And we just, the trust protection kicks in. The house is gonna go where the trust says, even if the children are gone. But what about my disabled child? Because she's on federal benefits for disability. won't she get kicked off of her benefit if she receives an inheritance from me and a bunch of money?
Yeah.
Stop, that's too much protection. That's enough. They get the idea? It's clear now. Well, yes, normally if you just get a bunch of money straight away, you might get kicked off of your federal benefit like Medicaid or SSI. If you have a child with a disability, then you are probably familiar with these benefits. And they are needs-based. So when a child inherits a bunch of money, the government says, oh, you don't need us anymore, so just take your inheritance, that's fine. And when you're poor again, then call us back, right? Well, there's a special kind of trust that we can make inside of the trust that deals with, will you just stop? That deals with that sort of problem, okay? So it gives the inheritance to the child in small little portions that the government is okay with. That can be done through a trust. It even could be done on its own if you didn't make a revocable living trust. You do a special kind of trust like that. Okay, now, I think I've gone over pretty much everything. Oh, even if you have a pet, you can include provisions in your trust about your pet.
What?
It can be done. And not just in your will, but there are things called pet trusts. They really are a thing.
No way.
Pet portraits, pet trusts, pet massages. There's all kind of weird stuff for you. It's true. Okay, so let's see. I think that's just about all as far as estate planning is concerned. I haven't really talked about Medicaid, but the only thing I would say about Medicaid is, remember this is the state? Yes? Okay. Remember that beneficiary deed thing I talked about a while ago? This protects your home from probate? It also shields your home from what's called a Medicaid lien, where the state could come back after it has paid you benefits for long-term care, and then you pass away. The state has the right to say, well, we're gonna get our money back, and we're gonna put a lien on your house. So when you sell it, we get back however much we paid you out in benefits. But they can't do that if that beneficiary deed is there. So if the state shows up and tries to take that money, tries to climb up that house and take it, can't do it. Okay? So there are lots of benefits to deeds just like that. And the whole Medicaid plan is a more complicated discussion, but I'm not gonna take any more time because I think I've given you a pretty good angle on what it is that I'm doing. I look at it this way, it's very colorful for me. I think I try to present it professionally when I'm actually meeting with people. I clearly don't have a Godzilla toy in my office.
You should.
It makes things make sense in a way, I think.
Sure.
And I wanted it to be packaged so that all of you could quickly understand sort of what I'm trying to do, and it mostly is shielding things, right? I'm not trying to take anything away from you, I'm trying to make sure you keep as much as you possibly can. And yeah, you have to pay me to do that, but hey, that's just the way that life goes. And pay a little bit now, save a whole bunch later.
Right.
That just makes a lot of sense.
That's awesome,
So,
dude.
if you guys have any questions?